Guys, welcome to another episode of the Discipline and Legacy podcast. This is the Connecticut edition. I'm here with my guy, Ian Bick. I flew in yesterday, man. Connecticut's beautiful. New York's beautiful. Never been up here before. But, Ian welcomed me with open arms into his studio. We just got the opportunity to do the Locked In podcast with him. He's absolutely killing it in the industry. The guy is taking something that happened in his life and turning it for good. And, I really look up to him for what he's got going on, and he's definitely been influential in my journey. And, I'm absolutely it's an honor to be here with you, man, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Well, thank you very much for the really kind intro, and I appreciate you coming all the way from the warm Florida to cold Connecticut.
We need a little switch every once in a while. My wife, she's like, "Oh, we're going to see snow." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe not."
It all kind of just melted. There was so much snow, it was like 10 feet, or it was a lot of snow.
I heard it was bad.
Yeah, and then we had like 3 or 4 days of like 70-degree weather last week. I had the shorts out. I was in a T-shirt, and then boom,
I
we
took
just
the
got
hoodie off
knocked
today.
out.
Like I was like, man, I think I can wing this a little bit. My AC's a little bit colder than this at the house.
Today is definitely warmer, but
Yeah.
the last couple days it was really cold, and at night it gets cold. But yeah, I have the AC back on at home, but like I turned the heat off here, and then I had to turn the heat back on because it gets cold in here.
Yeah.
But it sucks because that bill is as much as the rent.
Is it really?
Yeah, for heat, it's crazy. So the electric is cheap to run. My bill goes for like $200 or $300 for the electric in the summer, and then the winter it's $900, $1,000. The last 3 months I paid like $950.
What is the heat? Is it gas?
No, it's electric heat. I guess it takes so much to run that. Yeah, I have no gas bill here.
Huh.
It's interesting.
That's crazy.
I know.
I just stick to where you wear a hoodie twice a year, and I like that weather down in Florida.
There must not be any good insulation in here, or I think maybe the whole building isn't heated as a whole and it's just the individual units, because if you don't put the heat on here, it gets freezing.
Wow.
Like it's cold. Like there was, when we first moved in here, we'd forget to turn on the heat, or we would just like turn it on when we needed it. And if you missed it, it was brick in here.
That's awesome. Listen, I want to dive in, man. I want to hear your testimony. I want to hear the story of Ian Bick. I know, I've heard a little bit of it, but I don't think I've seen anything where you've been a guest or you got to share a little bit of your testimony. But I'm not saying it's not out there, but for our sake, I mean, can you walk us through a little bit of kind of like, how you grew up, what brought you to ended you up into the predicament that you were in, going into prison and stuff like that. Can you let's start there.
So I grew up in Danbury, Connecticut, the town over, and it's funny because later on I would spend prison time in Danbury, Connecticut. That's where they filmed, or that's what Orange Is the New Black is based on.
Really?
But I grew up in in the female prison there. Did you ever watch that?
I've seen clips of it. I don't get caught up in I'll get stuck on Netflix, man. I'll binge watch stuff, so I just stay away from it.
Yeah, it's a good series. It kind of like goes a little ridiculous later on, but the first couple seasons are really good. But I grew up, a good family. Both parents. My dad was a retired New York public schools teacher and administrator turned private chef. Started his own catering company. I got my entrepreneurial spirits through my dad. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and then she got into massage therapy and like clinical type work. And I have a younger brother. We always went on family vacations, have family dogs, family game nights, pizza night on Fridays. It was a really good upbringing. I got bullied as a kid a little bit for being like chubby or overweight in elementary school. So my parents put me in private school, Montessori school, where it's like 1st through 8th grade in one classroom. That kind of really promotes independence. And then I switched back to public school for 7th and 8th grade so I can acclimate to a public school setting before I went to the public high school, because the Danbury High School is one of the largest in the state with 3,000 kids.
Wow.
My graduating class was like 900 kids. So I knew I needed to be out in that setting. I couldn't go from a class of 12 to a class of 900. So went back to public high school, and all throughout like elementary school and middle school, I was always like a hustler, entrepreneur. If I wanted the new Wii or the new Xbox, I'd set up a lemonade stand or a little candy store across the street. Always hustling, like doing lawn jobs or leaf jobs or lawn mowing, anything, to make a few dollars, save my money all summer, get the new system or the new Call of Duty when it came out. So my parents kind of instilled that in me. I mean, we had a great childhood, but if we wanted something more than say like what was given on a birthday or Christmas or something, then we had to work for it.
Go out and get it.
And so there was that. And then in middle school, kind of just trying to find my identity. And, I went through the skater phase, went through the prep phase, like the Hollister, nerdy
the
type
dock
phase.
shoes and deck shoes.
Yeah. Kind of just trying to fit in with the crowds. I got picked on again in kind of middle school. I had like blonde highlights. I looked like a chipmunk. Just trying to be cool, carried around a skateboard, didn't know how to skate. Went through like the zoomies phase. And then I had bad grades in middle school. And going into high school, I was like, well, I want to get my life on track, and I wanted to be an FBI agent, ironically. And so I focused heavily on school, became top of my class freshman year, got into AP classes sophomore year. I was in musical theater all 4 years of high school. But really kind of, I guess the turning point in my life was the beginning of sophomore year of high school. I was just kind of like a quiet kid. I had a little bit of popularity because we hosted the cast party after my end of freshman year of musical theater. And that got me introduced to, say, like upperclassmen. But overall, I was very unknown in the school. But sophomore year, me and my friend Steven, who was a childhood friend from the Montessori school, we foamed these cars with insulating foam, and it causes like $5,000 worth of damage to the cars on mischief night before Halloween. And we were getting back at the vice president and president of our community's neighborhood because they were making all these rules against kids, like don't dirt bike, don't do, paintball guns or golf carts, and all these rules. So we got back at them, got caught because I was like the black sheep of the community.
Did you like stick foam inside the car?
No, it was like the insulating foam. So we sprayed the locks thinking it would just lock the locks, like we thought it would be like glue. Instead, it expanded and dripped all the way down the side of the cars.
Wow.
So that caused damage. We got caught, got sentenced to community service. And so I got this idea to, instead of, doing a normal community service job, I decided to sell these bracelets that like the Live Strong bracelets, like these rubber ones for $1 a piece that said "Fight for the Homeless" on them to benefit the local homeless shelter. My dad paid for the bracelets, paid for the posters, and I made it like a little business. And I was always, like I said, an entrepreneur outside of school. And then in middle school, my dad would drop me off with school lunch money, and there's a CVS there. So I'd buy like gum and candy and energy drinks and resell them out of my backpack in middle school.
Did that with Warheads.
Yeah, Warheads. I remember those.
We
those
used
were
to
popular.
get them from Sam's, like the Sam's, or I don't know, they got Costco up here or whatever.
Yeah, we had Costco's and BJ's. We'd buy the big packs of gum, and we'd sell them out of there. So that was really good. And I'd make money. I'd make like $100 a week. So I had that entrepreneur sense, and I made this little business while maintaining my grades. And that evolved into me hosting a school dance to benefit the cause.
Okay.
And at that school dance, I kind of realized I set the whole school dance up, got a DJ, planned it, everything.
Wow.
And that school dance led to me getting the idea that there's a profit to be made, like throwing parties.
Yeah.
Kids want to go to more events. They want to go to house parties. They want to go to club nights, especially ones that aren't your traditional ones like prom or snowball or anything ran by the school where it's strict. There's edited music. They're watching the dancing, all of this. So after that, that was kind of like, my addiction in high school wasn't gambling or drugs. It was that high off of being liked and popular, and that could really get to your head. So after that event,
and making money.
Yeah, and making money. But for me, it was never about the money. All the money I made throughout high school, and I would come to make a lot of money, spent it on my friends, spent it on mostly pretty much my friends. Like we would go to a party. I was always a DD because I wasn't really much of a drinker when I got my license, and we would go to Wendy's. No one had money, and I would spend like $300 or $400 for everyone for the whole party to have Wendy's.
Wow.
So I started throwing house parties at my parents' house, and these were like 200, 300, 400 people parties. I'd tell my parents 30 people were coming, and all of these kids would show up.
And they let you.
Yeah, I mean, I think they rather me be there where they could watch,
Yeah.
rather than me go somewhere else. And it was a whole different time back then, you know.
Yeah.
Like, thankfully, nothing.
How old are you?
I'm 30 now, but this
Okay.
is, this was 20, 10 or 11, which doesn't seem like too long ago, but it was long ago in the sense where there's no Uber. You didn't really hear about all of like the drunk driving crashes that you hear about now from teens drinking at parties, or it was different
Yeah.
back then. Watching kids in high school now and stuff, they don't really have that same experience we did. So I was throwing these parties, I was gaining popularity, became vice president of my class, got on like the student councils, was organizing events for charity through the school and also helping them with school dances and proms and whatnot. And then eventually my parents kind of got fed up with the whole house parties. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Our yard's trashed. I mean, we got to the point where we were putting up a tent for the after prom party to host all these kids. And we got a DJ, a dance floor, porta potties, and we live on a lake. So kids were like on the rowboats and the kayaks, and we had a big patio. It was really quite the scene. And the cops only ever came once for my birthday party that actually had 40 people at it, and the music was playing louder than the party lasted. So when the cops came, there was 5 people there. But we were very lucky that no one ever got hurt or drove drunk or anything like that. But my parents eventually had enough, and I got this idea to start looking around for a place to host these like kind of parties.
Mm-hmm.
I came across this thing called the Palace Theater that my dad was friends with the owner, and I basically took the school dance concept into a business and rented this place out, hired security, bartenders for non-alcoholic drinks, police officers, staff, everything. And I turned it into a nightclub for the night, called it the End of the Year Blowout at the Palace Theater, had DJs and everything. And I tested this concept. We had like 600 kids. Expenses were super high because you're creating this venue from nothing, like put everything in from scratch. But I made like a couple grand from it. And then from
after expenses, and after
expenses, yeah, I think we grossed like 15 or 20 grand, and the expenses were super high because literally everything from scratch. So after that, I had to kind of find a venue that had everything, and that brought me to a local club in Danbury called Tuxedo Junction, which I would later own later on. And this club used to do these things called teen nights, where it was like any type of high school, like 14 to 18, no alcohol. They'd lock the alcohol up. And they'd have a DJ and stuff. But they had died out. They'd gotten old, and no one had done them in a couple of years. So I brought them back, only this time I added in electronic music because that was big at the time, like Avicii, Alesso, and all of those names. So we'd mix like reggaeton and electronic dance music and hip-hop and stuff, and we found these local DJs. And me and a couple kids from high school created this brand called This Is Where It's At Productions. Eventually we made it like an LLC, but we'd host like once a month these raves, the Halloween rave, the Christmas rave, a paint party that was like mimicked after Dayglow, throwing the paint into the crowd. And we went from, the first event had a few hundred to then our last event had like 2,000 kids. And I was making anywhere from 10 to 15 grand a night once a month profit.
Wow.
And splitting it with these other kids. I had the majority, and it was a business. And by junior year of high school, because this was going on like end of sophomore into junior and end of junior year, I decided I'm not going to go to college, and I was going to go all in on this. The next step for me was to scale it was, all right, I'm going to go into concerts. And I ended up, raising money from friends and family. We got a connect to Asher Roth, who was big at the time for I Love College. Then after that, we booked Big Sean with these guys that we partnered with, lost a bunch of money with them, and realized we could do this on our own. So we started raising money for a Wiz Khalifa show.
Wow.
The Wiz Khalifa show never worked out, and I had raised like $120,000. This is my halfway through senior year of high school, and I eventually led a semester early. And half the investors took their money back, the other half left it in, and we spread it out to a string of shows. Like we had Rusco and Huey Mack and a bunch of different, like 10 shows.
Yeah, spread it out.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, every single one of those shows lost. Either not enough ticket sales or snowstorms or artists not showing up or promoters screwing us. I mean, we were kids dealing with way too much money.
Yeah.
No accountants. It all went into like this business bank account. And I just got lazy. I had I was a hustler. I had great success in high school, and I raised that money, and I'm thinking I've already made it. Like I'm the next Scooter Braun or everything's good.
Yeah.
But
I guess that would be pride or ego got in there, right?
Yeah, I didn't put in the work. Like I was the kid that, bucked off against not going to college when all my friends were going to college. And at the time, there was less stories unless you were one of those multimillionaires that, you don't go to college. Now it's a lot more normal not to go. Back then you had to go. And I just wanted to be that like top percent that, didn't go and was successful. And as soon as those shows started failing, I started lying when I should have just said, hey, I lost the money, and we would have figured it out civilly or whatever. But instead, I said it made money because I wanted to uphold that image. And once you tell one lie in business, it folds into more lies and more lies. And I just kept borrowing money from people and trying to start new businesses and lying about one business to pay off another debt. And I just kept trying to buy time. And eventually it leads to, this is all over like a 6 to 12 month thing. It's an accidental Ponzi scheme because I'm taking money from one person to pay off another, and I'm promising, high returns on their investment. And it wasn't intentional, but it just happened that way. I didn't have a single, bad bone in my body.
Right.
Didn't want to steal from anyone. I was just buying time to hope it would all, like a gambler chasing his losses.
Yep.
And it didn't work out. And throughout that process, I became under investigation when all these, friends, family, kids and their parents lost money. And the police kicked it up to the state's attorney, who decided to decline to prosecute, and eventually got up to the federal level. And by the time I was 19 years old, after a years-long investigation, they indicted me on 15 federal charges, money laundering, making a false statement, and wire fraud. And the total loss was around $500,000. I think the feds picked it up because they thought it was probably millions of dollars. And drugs were involved in all this stuff, but it didn't turn out to be. And I think they thought I was going to take a plea deal right away, but I genuinely thought I was innocent in the sense where I didn't have the intent to defraud anyone. I wasn't some scammer that put his kids through school or bought nice cars. The stupidest thing we did was buy jet skis, and we had them for like 2 months, but we weren't sitting on houses and property. And,
Right.
When you look at the total amount of money that got brought in, maybe like $100,000 got spent illegitimately, but most of it just went to pay off other people, or went into businesses because I was actively putting on concerts. $250,000, if not a little more, went into concerts.
Yeah.
They just all failed. So there was legitimate investments. It was just the lying that really got me into trouble. And then during, I ended up going to trial, and during the trial, I ended up opening up a Tuxedo Junction that closed, and I turned it into an EDM venue where I'm having like Steve Aoki and the Chainsmokers and Adventure Club. So I'm doing all these things and funding that by going out of state to gamble, which was the reason why I got my bond revoked after, a year of being found guilty on about half the charges. They revoked my bond like a few weeks before sentencing, and ended up in prison when I was 21. And got sentenced to 3 years in federal prison a few weeks after that in October 2016.
Wow.
And now here we are.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, geez, that's a story, man. From I guess like you said, nowadays you hear it a lot more with the younger kids that are driving SVJs and when they're 20 years old because of I guess you could call it whatever, Ponzi scheme, coaching programs, whatever.
Oh, all this shit's a scam. Whenever someone says they're a high net worth earner or do my course or anything, like it's always interesting, like these supposed millionaires that have like these courses. Why do you need to waste your time with that?
Yeah.
I just don't understand a lot of this stuff. But yeah, if you say like multi-figure earner or millionaire owner, maybe some of them are genuine, but I think most of them, if they're using that bio to attract other people, like if you're sitting here with $1 million in your bank account and that's your bio, but you're not trying to scam other people, then God bless you, you're fine. But it's the people that are trying to fish for other people with that.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff's like pyramid schemes. I get pitched on stuff all the time.
Or don't have, like, it's fake, a lot of people are fake, I don't claim to be rich, but, I live the American dream. I got a lot of bills, right?
Oh, it's crazy. But, social media is just like a big fugazi with everything. People are renting cars.
100%.
You look at, like, Wes Watson. He's the perfect example of that. You look at all the shit he's going through right now, but I mean, all his cars are rented, houses are rented, you know? You would think he's a billionaire. A lot of that's just rent, and people are living off credit cards. Listen, when I first got getting approved for American Express and stuff, like when I started building my credit for the first time after prison, and you know, they gave me access to like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 off of like a small salary. It's like, wow, if they gave me that, imagine like some of these other people, and they're able to live off that. You know, they're just charging it. And you see how so many people are on credit card debt. You know, that's how these people are living. Like, you look at some of these influencers, they're on these vacations, they're on this and they're on that. And then you watch them on a finance podcast. You know, I've been watching some of those like finance podcasts lately where they like roast the person that's on the show or whatever.
Really?
Like they try to break down your financial situation. I mean, Dave Ramsey does the same thing too.
Yeah.
But it's like $7,000 for this vacation on the credit card, X, Y, and Z. People are just living off of them, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy. You could fall into that trap.
Definitely. I learned, I think, from, you know, watching my mom. My mom filed for bankruptcy twice. So, like, I was always that guy that, like, hey, if I couldn't pay for it cash, I wasn't going to buy it.
Yeah, my dad's the same way. I mean, he just started using credit in recent years, but for growing up, you know, it was always just cash. I think credit is definitely essential for like when you're operating a business, and it's beneficial if you have good cash flow.
Yeah.
That was my problem as a kid. I never had good cash flow because I was taking money, putting it into a concert that would happen 6 months down the line.
Yeah.
You need cash flow to operate.
Or wait to spend it until you get closer.
Exactly. Where in my business now, there's constant revenue coming in each month. And even then, cash flow could be tight because you're only getting paid out from these sites once a month.
Right.
It's not like a restaurant where you're getting the credit card receipts the next day. So like any money I make this month, I don't get paid till, you know, the 24th or the 25th of the next month.
Yeah.
So you have to budget accordingly and have that, you know?
Or create more streams of revenue so that I attribute it to my lawn business method, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a lawn business from 17 until whenever. I think I had it like 10 years, right? But, man, I always had people giving me money. Every day it was like, here's this much, here's this check, here's this cash. So when you have several businesses like that, you know, like, hey, I'm selling a book. This book's bringing in this much every week. So there's a lot of different streams of income that end up being the same as like having a lawn business. You're getting a check every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm learning that now. My credit, all that stuff has been destroyed since, I mean, really I was younger. I'm like starting my life over 8 years ago, essentially.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I didn't have credit. That's what got me into trouble. Like I didn't have credit, so I borrowed from people. It's almost like a part of it's like, well, if I had credit and, you know, used it, I probably could have just declared bankruptcy and I wouldn't have what I'd have now, because then there wouldn't have been a criminal case and would have just been banks and it would have been different, you know. But I guess that's all in hindsight. But yeah, all I had going into prison was one of those prepaid credit cards.
Yep.
With $600 limit that I owed coming out of prison. It was like in default. So I just had to settle that when I got out. And that was it. I settled that and like an AT&T phone line or whatever. And then it's been so many years, the negative remarks came off my credit report. Yeah. But credit, I mean, the whole credit score shit's like ridiculous too. You use your credit, you get dinged on the score. Even if you're paying on time, you could use 100% of your credit. Like if they give you 20 grand, you use that 20 grand, but you pay it on time, you're paying the interest, your credit score takes the hit. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Plus you got different credit scores for different things too. Like they pull your credit report to buy a house is different than when they pull your credit report to buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, which one is it? If it's 600, it should be 600, like across the board.
Oh, it's so crazy. It's all like it's a scam, you know. It's how they get people trapped.
So you talked about being, you know, 19 or what'd you say, 21 by the time you ended up going to prison.
Yeah.
Walk us through a little bit of that. How was that going into a federal penitentiary at 21 years old?
My first prison was a low, and it was hard. Everyone thought I was a sex offender, like a chomo.
Yeah.
I mean, they gave me the nickname like McLovin or Squints from the Sandlot in there. But
you had to show them your paperwork, though.
I didn't know anything about that in the beginning, so that's why they gave me a hard time. They thought I was a sex offender. Eventually, I worked everything out.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't know you had to join a car or, click up with people or just operate, So I did everything you shouldn't do, got involved in gambling, phones, dice. I would play dice till like 5 or 6 in the morning. And I'm lucky I didn't get killed or hurt, because I was good. I'd play dice, get $1,000, win and walk out of there. 6 blackjack dudes who are pissed off,
Like, see you later, guys. You're like, whoa,
Go back
you
to
gotta
my
stay
room.
back in here,
I would
bro.
just run to my room because once you're in your room, you're safe because no one wants. They were 12-man rooms, so no one's gonna disrespect the room by coming in there. But yeah, man, that shit. I did everything you're not supposed to do.
Wow.
I didn't know. The only movie I'd watch was Orange Is the New Black on prison. I never watched like Shawshank or Prison Break or any of those movies, so I had no idea what to expect. It was a totally different than what you could ever imagine, just how it was laid out and the politics and everything. And then I eventually made it to a camp for my last year. The camp was good, no fence. People are like leaving, running through the woods to pick up, like McDonald's or Burger King or pizza. I was one of the runners that would run through the woods, go to the side of the road, pick up a bag, because I wanted that adrenaline.
Yeah.
And this was in Wisconsin. We're running through the snowy woods, and it was fun. We all had cell phones. We were watching like TV shows like Power in our bunk. It was a good time. I got into fitness, got into working out, got into sports. It was on the softball team, the basketball team, and that year kind of like really flew by. That was a good experience, and there's people that I still talk to from that today. And guys will hit me up all the time. Hey, I see your show. I was in prison with you, and guards too. But it was a really good experience going through that. That aspect of it. As bad as some elements were, there were good aspects. And ultimately, I built my brand off of prison. The prison stories, like spending time in solitary for 6 months or going on Con Air or things of that nature I would tell on social media years later. So those worst moments I had no idea would be my asset.
Yeah.
And I'd sit like in a cell and I'd write down like I want to go into real estate and open this LLC. And my goal was always to like sell my story of being a teen nightclub owner because it's original and I thought it was really good.
Like what, Netflix or something?
Yeah, I read Wolf of Wall Street and I wanted to be that, like a teenage one. I would remember I would be on a contraband phone querying agents, for the book. And everyone rejected me and it didn't work out. And I'm glad it didn't work out because I'm glad my success didn't come from like an overnight hit.
Right.
Because then that shit dies out too. I was able to build an actual brand on my own from the ground up. But it's interesting to see how, that all unfolded. Like those moments I was hoping for were literally right there in front of me, just in a way I didn't expect.
Would you say too? I mean, going back from the beginning, I mean, it sounds like that you had some sort of discipline inside of you, right? Something that was driving you to do something or move in a direction to, lead entire parties, right? To put parties together, So where do you think that came from, and how do you think it affected you then and now?
I've always been super disciplined, like when I set my mind to it. I think before prison, I was never disciplined enough to like work out physically. I would try and go in spurts, but my discipline was mainly on business or having a routine or even like with the nightclub. I've always been a hard worker. I got that from my dad. He's 80 years old today. He'll get up at 4 a.m. and still work and grind. And I think I got that discipline routine from him. I just always knew, like, if you commit to something, you see it through and you get the job done, whatever it takes. And I had that mentality. That mentality helped me out of prison when I worked at Whole Foods for 3 years. That was my first job out of prison, my only job really out of prison, aside from like restaurants and DoorDash and Uber. And I just gave it my all, and I poured my heart and soul into that company to build a new life for me and rise up the ranks. I moved up very quickly. And I apply that same strategy now. Like, I don't leave until the job's done, and I do whatever I have to do. It's not putting it off. Or even if I put something off till tomorrow, it's not because it's not due tomorrow, Like, I'll always meet a deadline. It'll never just not exist.
Right.
Like if there's an episode due tomorrow night, you could best believe I'm going to move mountains to get that episode up. So there's a lot of that. It's just having systems. I'm very organized and just dialed in, Now, I do 5 episodes a week. I do all my own editing. I run a team and I built this business And it just seems very easy now. Like a lot of it runs on its own and has its own wheels and stuff. But I've always been really good at managing different things. And I got Whole Foods. I'd run a team of like 40 people or 50 people. And I've just been really good at staying stress-free and kind of like relaxed and chill and do that. Some people are naturally born at that and gifted at that.
100%. No, leadership is definitely, you can get better at it, but it's almost something that, like I look back on my life and kind of saw it early on, and kind of same thing for you. It sounds like with, in high school years already leading people into, wanting to start venues and stuff like that. So no, that's really awesome. What would you say up to this point? What would you say probably was the most adverse part of your life?
I think definitely prison. I think going through prison was the hardest because you're literally at rock bottom. Going into prison, I had literally nothing. I was negative, the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had nothing. Like I didn't even when I owned the nightclub before prison, I was still on my parents' insurance. I had no car. My license was suspended from speeding tickets. My bank accounts were shut down. I was banned from banks. I had no credit. I had nothing. Literally nothing going into prison and then coming out of prison. So I think that will always forever be rock bottom for me. Okay. If I lost all of this tomorrow, that would still probably be rock bottom. But I mean, there's all this, like I would have to really screw up to lose like every little piece.
You could get it back.
Yeah, but also there's so much. Like I own the equipment. There's a big foundation,
Right.
But whereas before it was very fragile and I didn't own really anything, I had nothing. I lost everything. Any material possessions I had in that club all got lost too. When the old owners took it back and everything, all I have is like one poster or two posters from there that my dad was able to get. But all of that is just non-existent now. And the building's even demolished now. So I think it doesn't get any lower than that at that point. So it's slowly been a build. But even if, I'm one of those people where if I were to lose everything, I would just restart. I tell people all the time, if social media died or podcast died or whatever, I walk into a Whole Foods, go get a job, build a career.
The thing you can't take away is that heart, that drive. I call it like, we joke at work like, yeah, he don't got that dog in him, and certain people have it. And it's not that like, I think everybody can attain that, right? Everybody can do it if they put their mind to it and do those things they don't want to do when they don't want to do them, even though it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think I've always been a big risk taker. And you just can't be afraid to get back up in the fight. Go back into it. And yeah, I'm just not, like if I lost everything, I'm not afraid to just figure out how to get it back. There's always a way. There's always something else. I think that the odds of that happening are unlikely because I think this is my purpose. And I think things don't work out for people because they haven't found their purpose. You see so many people in life that try to do something and it doesn't work out. Like, for example, the podcast industry. So many people want to get into the podcast industry. And
it's a new fad. That's
it's a new fad. Everyone wants a podcast. Most people give up, which is why I give you credit that you're going and you're doing more episodes. Most people quit after 10. A lot of celebrities quit after 10 because they want that instant gratification. You see celebrities with 10 million followers on Instagram that launch a podcast and can't get 1,000 views on their YouTube. It's hard to build. So, in this industry, you have to be all in. And I tell people, I'm like, you're super successful. Say you own a McDonald's. You're making so much money into that. That's what you're supposed to be doing in your life. And you want to go start this podcast to build this up and it's just not working. And I think that goes into, that's not your purpose in life. I found my purpose and that's why I think success comes to me in that. I've tried so many other things. Whenever I get into something that's not the podcast, it doesn't work out, Great example is when I was in high school, I was doing the teen parties. I was making money. That was my purpose. I probably could have kept going with that. Maybe went to college and expanded that. Instead, I got lazy and wanted to go into the big leagues and got into concerts, which was not my purpose. And I've lost more money in concerts.
Had you stuck to your niche or what you were good at, you probably wouldn't have been.
Exactly. Had I stuck to teen parties, which I was super successful, I have not ever in my life lost on a teen party. Ever. My record's solid on teen parties. I made thousands of dollars, probably like $100,000 profit, Concerts, I'm negative, I had a couple wins, but that doesn't make up for the losses. Podcasting, I've become successful in this. maybe my story hasn't been adapted for TV or a movie or anything because that's not my life's purpose, you know? I get offers for so many different things and it's not it. The Mr. Beast thing worked out for me because that was what was meant for me and ultimately helped my mission to repay restitution back.
Nice.
Out of all the felons I could have casted, out of everything, and I almost didn't open that email and, got on the phone because casting people hit me up all the time and a lot of it's just bullshit, and, I was just chasing after all that. But now, that was meant for me. The things that are meant for you are going to happen the way it's supposed to work out.
Yeah.
So that's what I tell people. That's the advice I give. And, I see a lot of guys that they'll come on the podcast or they're struggling and they're trying to build something. And sometimes it's just going back to the basics, work that normal job. It's not necessarily all like there's so many people that are like, I want to, share my story, get it out there and connect me to 100 different podcasts and stuff. That's not what's going to get you to the next level. It's finding something that you're really good at, or even that you have some success in and you ride with that.
Yeah.
You look at a place like Walmart, you could go in there and get a job and become a store a manager and make $200,000 a year in 5 or 6 years. It's a pretty good investment right there. And it's not costing you any money.
5 years of your time. Yep.
Yeah. Same thing with Whole Foods. I went from making $15 an hour to $33 an hour. Plus overtime was almost $100,000 a year. Full benefits, could have went up to the next level, But again, it goes back to you have to have that dog in you.
Yeah. No, yeah, I saw the post you made, how that's what you're looking for too nowadays. And now that I'm on the other side of it, as far as like hiring folks and trying to find good people or building a team, right, is that not everybody has it. Then that's why there's certain people always, will always want to be the $15 an hour Whole Foods worker because that's the only thing that they can see past. And like you said, you're like, people tell me this all the time. Well, just work that job. Just work that job. And then if you really want to find your purpose and you're truly looking for it, it'll be revealed to you.
Yeah, the success you're looking for is a lot of times right there,
Right in front of our face.
When I was sitting in that jail cell and I wanted the Wolf of Wall Street fame and success, it was there for me. Just not in the way I expected it, Yeah. I mean, I always say had I started what I did now during COVID, I'd be a millionaire, because people were consuming that content.
Yeah.
And that was just great. But I also had to go through that process of finding myself, building. I rebuilt my credit, got a car, got a dog, had a relationship, got my own apartment, paid my own bills, those 3 years at Whole Foods. So now I just tell everyone that's coming out of prison, don't get into any of this at first. Just work a normal job.
You built your foundation first.
Exactly. Take care of your family. Or if you don't have a family, most people more than not have kids or something. Just work a normal job.
Yeah.
Put the pride aside and the ego aside. Work that minimum wage. And I hate when people make it about like privilege or color or any of this stuff. Who cares? I would go and work a $9 an hour job,
I was happy and humble with my $16 an hour running a bulldozer.
Yeah.
Cheap Honda Pilot. That was a $10,000 Honda Pilot. Was only worth $6,000, but I paid for that thing for 4 years.
My first car after prison was a $14,000 Nissan that had a 20% interest rate that would have cost me almost 3 times as much, over the course of that. So, it's just you come a long way with that. I never imagined having like good credit or just the things that I'm able to do now,
How far along or how long ago was it that you started when you got out of prison?
I got out of prison 2019, okay. Quit in the summer of 2022. It'll be, 4 years this summer since I've been on my own. First 6 months to 7 months were brutal. I mean, I quit in August of 2022 and I didn't start making like money from social media till like that April. Lived off my credit cards, racked up 30 grand in debt. Like I went back to the bottom again.
Yeah.
Had that grueling credit card debt, which is actually worse than like restitution and stuff because the interest tax on and it's just there, you're immobilized. You can't do anything.
Yep.
You can't get an apartment. You can't do anything. But yeah, just did Uber, DoorDash, all of these things just to hustle, work for my dad, to grind while I was building the dream. And there's times where I thought about going back to work or working side jobs. But I just kept doing it. And I made so many mistakes in building this business, like with partners and, investors and all of these things. And I finally have made it past all of that and learned from that. It's just business, it's like the art of business, learning how to navigate that. Because there were so many things. I've never owned a successful business before. up until now. So it was interesting to see how it works and how to navigate it now. But now we're on the right track. We have employees for the first time, and things are going.
What would you say was probably what brought the most value to you in your walk since you started the podcast? What would you say was the most defining moment?
I think when I made the podcast about others and not about myself, when I shifted, I started on social media just sharing my story.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was really doubling down on just the person and also getting out of the way and letting them speak, my best interviews, I always say, are when it's just a guest speaking. So many podcasters interrupt their guests, or they're so focused on the question. My first episodes, like my first 10, were just question, answer. And I was so in my head of it has to go a certain way. So the minute I just stopped and just let it flow and let it be organic and just came up with questions off the top of my head and, just gave people the freedom to do it their way and grow it that way and take the feedback and the criticism from others and then multiply that and put that everywhere. And also just, stay true to myself and be humble and create, show the world who I was. Then that's when I think the success came. But also it goes back to it was what I was meant to be doing. And
Right.
we're helping people in the process too. Like, yes, it's a business, but it's also people get to share their stories. I always make sure, we promote their books. Now we're doing things like before on my Instagram, I would only post like the celebrity pics. Now I post every guest that comes on the show, the picture of them, tag them. My photos, like maybe the likes aren't as good as other people, but the views on it, I'll photo post like at 100 or 200,000 views.
Yeah.
And if it's me holding someone's book in it, it's beneficial, and we blast it all on social media. And I've learned views used to get to me, and now it doesn't matter. Now you just got to put stuff out there, see what sticks, and you're going to attract who you're going to attract for it. But yeah, and I donate my time to speak at prisons when people ask or any type of centers. And, I just keep going.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned it about the views. You had mentioned it about social media because obviously that's where all of this stuff gets put out there, right? What would you say was the biggest thing that you were able to learn in dealing in social media? What would you say the biggest thing would for somebody that maybe wants to start a podcast or somebody that's new in the industry?
Probably, there's two things. One, don't be affected by the negative comments. In the beginning, I was just putting myself out there, not the guests. Whereas now it's just the guests, and people will attack some guests, because there's always haters and trolls. And then the guests will fight back with them, which is great for engagement. But they get worked up about it, and they'll text me, and they're like, "Oh, I'll show you my paperwork, this and that." And then people accuse me of putting out frauds and stuff. And it's like, listen, if the person wants to come on here and lie, that's on them. It makes them look bad, And everyone has a different prison experience.
Yeah.
Like what happened to one person in this prison might not happen to this person in this other prison halfway across the country. And also, if you take out all the negative comments, you're only left with 50% of the comments. Why wouldn't you want that full pie of 100%?
Yeah.
When you're looking at it, I'd rather have 3,000 comments that are mixed than 1,500 that are just one. So, I learned that, and I learned to develop thick skin, and now, like, someone could call me whatever in the comments, and it's just like a laugh. It doesn't affect me whatsoever. Right. I'm immune to it. But I see how it'll affect, like, a guest, because it takes a lot to put yourself out there. And then the next part is just consistency. Whatever you do, I don't know if you're going to blow up in your 6th episode or your 600th episode, but you have to be consistent.
Yeah.
You have to ride it all the way through. What I learned is you focus on consistency first, consistently put out a good quality podcast, not like a Zoom interview, put out, good audio, good video. It doesn't have to be a $6,000 camera, but just good enough video where it's something. It'd be an iPhone, just good enough video and then great audio. You can never sacrifice on the audio. You put that out consistently. If that doesn't work for a while, then you have to look at, okay, let me look at my thumbnails, let me look at my titles, and let me look at me as an interviewer. And most of the time, the interviewer part, you'll answer on your own because people will say in the comments, oh, this guy, I remember I've had episodes where I've blown it in the beginning. Great guest. I had a clip go viral. One guy was an Iraq veteran. Clip did 15 million views. Everyone went to the episode, and I just kept interrupting him because I was so focused on the addiction story. Because I thought that was the brand of the podcast when he was trying to tell a different story, and people came for that one,
Mm-hmm.
So they called me a terrible interviewer. I still get comments to this day, but I have it pinned, the part 2 I did with him to like make it up or whatever, and I'll comment and say, hey, this is like an episode for 3 years ago. I've grown since then. And now I see comments in my newer episodes say, wow, he's grown, or I stopped listening to him, but now I listen to him and he's grown. So you have to take that feedback.
Yeah.
And then you just look at different things. You know, ChatGPT is a great tool, and just asking other people for advice.
Yeah. That's awesome. You did a part 2. I haven't even thought about doing part 2s
I do
with
some
people
part
yet.
2. Like, people always ask me for a part 2 on my platform. They're so tough because of my format. My format is you go through the person's life story. So how do you then do a part 2 if you've already gone through it? It would be out of order. We'll do some part 2s, like say you have a guest that's like a 4-hour story. Everyone's talking about them in the comments to bring them back. They were a good speaker. People that carry the podcast on their own for the whole thing. I've had guys that talk for 3 hours on their own. Those people will bring back and say, hey, all right, just tell stories this whole time, you know? And then you preface it with like, hey, this guy was on and, you know, he's coming back. People like that. But otherwise, you can't do a part 2 with everyone. I get so many comments from guests, hey, I'm doing X, Y, and Z now with my life. Would love to come back for a part 2. And it's just so hard to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it just comes down to the guest. You know, I would give advice to guests saying, you know, don't put yourself out there yet until you're ready for that picture to be out there. Like, you'll sometimes have a guest that comes on before the book comes out or before whatever they're trying to promote and then want to go back on. It's like you kind of already put that out there, you know? So I would wait, you know, I'll have guests that come ready to do it. They're excited. They get here. They're like, yeah, I'll let you know when the book comes out. If I was them, I would have waited till the book came out to do the podcast.
So, yeah, man. I mean, it sounds like you got the market cornered. What would you say would be the hardest part for somebody who maybe wants to get into this industry? What would you say were some of the biggest difficulties for getting started?
I think it's just, you know, it's finding your niche. You know, you could go into the field, but you got to put your own spin on it. Like any type of market, whether it's the prison genre or like the prison genre when I came in was oversaturated, and it's still oversaturated now. What was different for me was I was a young, white, nerdy kid that went to federal prison at 21. Most people that are big podcasts that interview other prisoners have not gone to prison. So I'm able to sit down with, say, like a celebrity that went to prison and ask questions from the perspective of someone that went to prison before.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you look at the biggest interviews in the world that have some of these people that went to prison don't really necessarily know what to ask because they can't relate to that.
Yeah.
So it's about finding your own spin on it, you know? Like, for me, if I had just an addiction podcast, I couldn't relate to the guest. So I think it's about having personal life experience and finding what's your hook to it. What makes you different? You could go in, I mean, look at, there's 9 million soda brands and more new successful ones come out every day. But it's just their own flair and their own spin, you know?
Still cola.
Yeah. It's the same thing, but they have their own spin to it.
Yeah. No,
you see that with energy drinks.
Energy.
And chew and dip and vapes and everything, you know? You got to find your hook.
What makes it different? What makes it better? You know, and I definitely think that you got to have that personalized kind of touch that sets you apart, right? Not do something because everybody else is doing it, but do it. I mean, I guess nothing's unique, nothing's original, right? The same words that are coming out of my mouth are the same saying. Somebody else said it 15 times in the past, 100 years. So.
Yeah, like I'll have so many people that they'll say they'll want to interview me, and the whole thing is either like about prison or it's about like the crime or whatever. And I've already done so many of those. So it's not every day I talk about like this aspect of it, like my business or stuff. You got to find a different hook, a different angle to it. It's not, you can't start a crime podcast, come here and then interview me about the crime in prison. That's not a new hook,
Yeah.
So I think that's what is important. Now, if you came here like what you did and you're asking questions that aren't really related to that, but you always have to get the person's background, which is totally fair.
100%.
But it's not just focused on that. So I think that is the biggest key to it.
Qualify.
Yeah, you have to look at one. You have to see how you're going to pull like that defining moment that's different.
Yeah. Speaking of defining moments, obviously you've kind of talked about this being your purpose. You've talked about when you leave your house in the morning, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. With that being said, what kind of legacy and impact do you want the Locked In podcast or the Ian Bick brand to leave on the earth?
I think it's just the biggest priority is being able to share as many people's stories as possible. That's why it's about the guests, you know? Majority of these guests never get the platform on a big platform to share their story. So this is about them being able to share their story, and it lives there as a documentary forever.
100%.
I have episodes with my dad that my grandkids, great-grandkids will get to see one day, you know? So I think that's just interesting that it lives there forever.
Yeah.
And I think that's a legacy. You're creating a legacy with that.
Okay. So what's new for you right now? What do you got going on right now?
I'm just focused on the podcast. I mean, we have some like TV stuff we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been working on TV stuff for, 7 years, 8 years. So who knows what will happen with that, whether it's a book or whatever, but when that time, if it comes, will come, so be it. But otherwise it's just about the podcast. We're just expanding the team. How do we make it better? How do we make each episode better? And growing with that.
All right. So TV, that means you're starting to
like streaming stuff. Like we're pitching like stuff for networks and stuff. There's a lot of influencers going into TV, but it's all in the early stages.
Gotcha.
I can't sit here and say there's a deal signed and we're going to production. And even if that day comes, it'll still take years after that.
Okay.
So I'm just I'm doing my own
thing. But you talked about it a couple of times. That's why I brought it up, because it sounds like something that the direction you want to move in.
I mean, if it's an opportunity that fits a brand and it makes sense, and it helps me pay the restitution off faster or helps a business. But ultimately, my main goal is a podcast. I'm not going to take anything that takes away from that, because I'm in control. I don't have to report to any networks or anything. I remain 100% in control. I don't have investors to answer to. I don't have anyone to answer to. I do what I want with the show at this point. So I think that's beneficial.
I like that you said that. I like that you said that, if it fits the brand, if it fits, you have total control. And because I think a lot of folks out there will just the first thing that pops up in front of them that is something that they can make money off of, and when they're in a situation like this, they jump on.
Yeah.
Whereas I've been approached as well where they're like, hey, this this app, we want you to do this, and I'm like, I could probably get behind that. That's something that is aligned with what I got going on. So I like that you want to keep the authenticity and be true to what you've kind of built here, and that's important, I think, and it is important with continued success, why you continue to be relevant.
Absolutely.
Awesome conversation, man, for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. I appreciate you coming to do my show.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you?
Just go to ianbick.com. It's so simple. We have everything linked. Yeah.
All of them are on there. You're on every single platform.
Yep.
Awesome. And this guy is killing it still. I mean, like I said, I take a lot from what I got going on. Not everything, but I've definitely learned a lot from your walk. And you're actually walking the walk.
Well, I appreciate it, man. If you ever need anything, the studio's available and stuff, so you're welcome to use it.
Thanks. You got anything else to say to the folks?
No, just I hope this conversation was beneficial for anyone listening.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And definitely, we're going to put all his links in the bio as well. So if you aren't following him yet, definitely go over there and check out ianbick.com.